My name is Lillian Trujillo. I'm a resident of San Elizario, and my family has been here for about 8 generations. My grandfather, Antonio Trujillo Sr., was served in different capacities in law enforcement here, from deputy sheriff to deputy constable to constable, mostly constable, for almost 50 years, from about 1926 to 1976 when he died. By the time that he was a constable, we no longer use this jail cell behind me. The county seat had been moved to El Paso. They brought this cell from Chicago, Illinois in about 1850. It was a federal penitentiary type cell. It was brought by railroad car up to a certain point, and it was brought by wagon train. And it's got the floors, it's got the sides, it's got the ceiling and the doors. And as you can see, there's no way you can get out. Even if you break into the building, you can't get out because of everything is steel. And there's even a hole in the back of the cell which served as their bathroom. So my grandfather no longer used this, but sometimes he would put prisoners in here when it was too late to take him to jail in El Paso. So one time he brought in a man who had committed some kind of crime, and he put him in the cell here overnight. Then when the next morning he came in all dressed up in his brand new Stetson cowboy hat and nice shirt, and he was taking the man to El Paso. So that when he takes the guy out of the cell, the guy says, "Can you take me to the outhouse? I didn't want to use that hole in the cell." So my grandfather takes him to the outhouse, and the guy comes out with a gun. Somebody had left him a gun in the cell, and he shoots at my grandfather. He shoots him towards the head, and he made a hole in his brand new Stetson cowboy hat and grazed his scalp, and my grandfather fell. But my grandfather was okay. But he was furious because they had made a hole in his brand new Stetson cowboy hat. So he quickly got up, pistol whipped the guy, and put him in the car and took him to jail. Now, my grandfather's wife, Irene Alarcón, her first cousin was Mr. Alarcón, who was the superintendent of the San Elizario School District. When they were unruly 6th and 7th grade kids, boys mostly, he would call my grandfather. And then my grandfather would bring him, put him in here. And there's no electricity, there's no bathroom, there's no lights. Put him in there for half a day as a punishment. By the time he picked up the kid swore he'd never misbehave again, and actually gave a tour to a man who told me I was one of those boys. He says, "I never misbehaved again." So this served as a deterrent. Of course, you can't do that nowadays, but at that point you could. And this is also where Billy the Kid broke his friend out of jail. Billy the Kid lived in New Mexico, and he heard his friend Mercader Segura was jailed here. So he rode all night long, and then he knocks on the door at night, and then he tells the guards it's the Texas Rangers, because in those days and he talks in Spanish, because Billy the Kid spoke perfect Spanish because he came from the east, but they settled in a town in New Mexico, and he learned quickly how to speak Spanish. So they called him a grown-up goat is a chiva, a baby goat is a chivato, and he was quite a mischievous kid, so they called him el chivato. So kid, Billy the Kid, chivato. So anyway, so when he came down here and he knocks on the door and he pretends he's a Texas Ranger and he talks in Spanish, because they had Hispanic Texas Rangers. So they said, "It's the Texas Rangers. I'm here to deliver some papers." So the guards open the door, and here he is with his gun. He takes away their guns. He takes away their keys. He lets his friend out of jail. He puts the guards in there. He throws the keys out in the back, and then he takes off for Mexico, which is only half a mile from here. And that's the only time that Billy the Kid broke into a jail. And this was the jail, and the next room was probably where the guards had their sleeping quarters, because they had to spend the night here too.